Lesson 2 in Unit 3 is on properties of parallel lines. We're going to start with some theorems and a postulate, and boy, oh boy, do you ever have to remember these. You will use them throughout the year, so if you didn't make your flashcards yet, got to get that done. So here we go. We're going to start with the corresponding angles postulate, which says if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of corresponding angles are congruent. And remember, we learned where the corresponding angle pairs are last time. So for instance, if we had this, and if we know that these two lines are parallel, and by the way, this is the markings that we use to show that lines are parallel. We put two little arrows on them, not the arrows on the ends, but arrows somewhere on the line. And remember, for instance, let's see, corresponding angles. If this was 1, that would be 2. Those two would be corresponding. And if I know those lines are parallel, then I know that those two angles are congruent. Corresponding angles. Alternate interior angles theorem. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of alternate interior angles are also congruent. That one's a theorem. All the rest of these are theorems except for the corresponding angles postulate. You need to remember that. Okay, consecutive or same side interior angles theorem says that if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of consecutive interior angles are, hold up, don't write congruent because they're supplementary. Supplementary. So, if these are my parallel lines, and I'll indicate them with my little arrows here, and here's my transversal, same side. So if I got angle 1 here and angle 2, those are consecutive interior angles. What I know is that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. Those are supplementary. All right. And finally, alternate exterior angles will be congruent, just like corresponding angles and just like alternate interior angles. If parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of alternate exterior angles are congruent. All right, let's do some practice. Using the figure below, name all pairs of corresponding angles. Oh, well, we kind of did this in the last lesson. So quickly, let's do corresponding. So what have I got? On the left of the transversal, I got angle 8 and angle 4. I got angle 5 and angle 1. On the right side of the transversal, I've got angle 7 and angle 3 and angle 6 and angle 2. All right, let's do the alternate interior angles. By the way, my colors aren't matching up with the drawing over there. Alternate interior angles. We have angle 5 and angle 3 and angle 4 and angle 6. And of course we know the alternate interior angle sets are congruent. Corresponding angle pairs are congruent. Let's do our consecutive interior now. Consecutive interior angles. We'd have angle 5 and angle 4 and angle 6 and angle 3, and we know that those are supplementary. And finally, I'm going to come over here. I don't really have room. Well, I guess I can put them right here. Alternate exterior angles would be angle 1 and angle 7, angle 8 and angle 2. And of course, we know those sets are also congruent. Okay, they're not all congruent to each other, but the pairs are congruent. The pairs of consecutive interior angles are supplementary. All right, we have a practice problem here. So let's see what we got. What is the value of y? Okay, this is where it's going to be good for you to grab your colored pencils, because what I want to do is I want to highlight my parallel lines. How do I know they're parallel? Because they got the two little arrows on them. And I'm going to also highlight my transversal. And this is where it might take a little practice because I got two options for a transversal here, don't I? Got two options for a transversal, but look here, guys. If I looked at this one that I'm going to draw in blue here, if I looked at this one as a transversal, and it is a transversal, but I don't have any angle associated with this line and the blue transversal, so that's how I know that I'm not really wanting to use that blue line as the transversal. So let me get that out of there so it doesn't further confuse us. So I'm telling you, if you don't have you some colored pencils, you better go get some. All right, so now, there are two parallel lines, are transversal. So what do we got? The angles we're looking at here would be this one and this angle right here, right? What kind of angles are those two? Well, they're consecutive interior angles, right? So I know that their sum has to be 180 because they're supplementary. So I know that 40 plus y plus 80 equals 180. So y plus 120 equals 180 degrees. So finally, y is going to be 60. And I got the little degrees here, so I don't have to say 60 degrees. I know that y is just 60 there. Okay, so let's see what we got next. We got two more problems. So I think this would be a splendid time for you to pause and do these two. No, actually three. Looks like there are three problems there. You do these three, come back and check. Okay, so here are the answers for this first problem. We knew that the measure of angle 1 is 118. Always label your figure, and then we needed to use that to find the measure of the other angles. Now, there are several ways we could have done this. For instance, once I knew that the measure of angle 1 is 118, I know that angle 1 and 2 are a linear pair, right? So I could just subtract 118 from 180, but I went about it a different way, just trying to use these new theorems and the postulate that we just learned. So you can see here by my answers what I did. Please check those. Let me know if you got any problems doing those. And then down here, two more problems. Use the properties of parallel lines and you know what we know about the angle pairs to find the value of x. So I know that angle 1 is congruent to 39 because those are alternate interior angles, and then I use the fact that 1 and this other angle here are a linear pair to know that they're supplementary, and I solved that. I got x equals 20, and here we have this angle and this one, which I know is a right angle, are congruent because they're corresponding angles. Therefore, when I set 3x equal to 90, I get x equals 30. All right, what do we have next? Ooh, a couple of proofs and then some more practice problems. Okay, we can work through these proofs together. So let's write our statements. And our reasons. And in this proof, we're trying to prove the alternate interior angles theorem. So remember, whenever you're proving a theorem or a postulate, you cannot use that theorem or postulate. L is parallel to M. That's given. Let's see. Okay, well that's all that's given. So let's see, what do I know because of the fact that L is parallel to M? Oh, I know that angles 2 and 6 are congruent, right? Angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. How do I know that? Because of the corresponding angles postulate. So you remember how in this little section we learned the corresponding angles postulate first? Since we had that before we had the alternate interior angles theorem, we can use that postulate in the proof. Okay, what else do I know? Let's look at my figure. Oh, I know that angle 2 is congruent to angle 4, right? Why do I know that? They're vertical angles, and the vertical angles theorem tells me that. Vertical angles are congruent. Now, I know that angle 4 is congruent to angle 6 because of the transitive property, right? transitive property of congruence. And, oh, that was it. That's what I was trying to prove right there. So there it is, end of the line, 4 steps. Okay, this coming proof here is a really, really nice proof, and I don't want to spoil it by doing it for you too soon. So I want you to do this one on your own. And then we'll go over it at the beginning of class. Do for homework, and we'll go over. You got to give it a try. I'm going to be checking. This is a really good proof, and I will tell you that it took me 7 steps, and I believe that's correct this time. Do for homework, and we'll go over at beginning of class. Don't want to spoil it by showing you how it turns out. All right, let's see what we have left. Ooh, we have some extra practice. Extra practice. So I think I should probably let you do those too. So you're going to do the proof. You're going to do these extra practice problems. I will put the solutions for these practice problems up while you pause and do them. Here, these problems worked out for you. You can see that in the first one, I highlighted my lines and my transversals so I could see what angle pairs I'm dealing with. And I can see that this angle here and this one are corresponding angles. So I set their measures equal to each other. Right there, 3y equals x because of the corresponding angles postulate. And I can see here that these are parallel. That's how I know that. Okay, and then these two are a linear pair, so I know that the sum of their measures is 180. So I've got a systems of equations. I used substitution. I plugged 3y in for x right there, which led me to this, and then that's how I got my solutions of y is 45 and x is 135. All right, come down to this problem. What you got to do is you got to use different lines and transversals to find out that all these 3 here are alternate interior angles with one that's already filled in. So look at that closely if you didn't get that. And then once I had those, what I had to do, so for instance, if I look at this triangle right here, I had 42, I had 87, so I know that's 129, and then I had to find this angle measure right here, so 180 minus 129 is 51, and then once I had that, then I could find out what angle Y finally measured. Let me know if you have any questions on that one. All right, and then finally on the last one, all you had to do is find the angles that were congruent to this one here. And of course I know that it's angle 1 because those are corresponding angles and these 2 lines are parallel. And because of the vertical angles theorem, angle 3 is congruent to angle 1. So therefore angles 1 and 3 would be 120 degrees. All right, don't forget to do that proof, and we'll talk about it next time in class.